Dear friends, today we have with us a very special guest. Today we have with us the Chair of Parliamentary Friends of India and Federal Member from Parramatta, Mr. Andrew Charlton. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us and a very good morning to you.
Pleasure to be with you, Pallavi.
Yeah. Uh, Andrew, the first question I want to ask is how important do you think is the Australia-India relationship in the current global scenario? And if you could briefly explain to us what your role entails as the chair of the Parliamentary Friends of India.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on the program, Pallavi, and hello to all of your viewers. The Australia-India relationship is incredibly important to Australia. It has always been important to Australia, but it is growing in importance. It's growing in importance because of three reasons. Firstly, the importance of India to Australia's economy is growing. As Australia's economy changes, as we become a more digital economy, a more services-based economy, our complementarity with India is growing. Secondly, our relationship is growing because of our defence and security ties, which are increasing through new institutions like the Quad Forum, which is a very important part of our forward security. And third, it's growing because of the very important role of Australians with Indian heritage in Australia. You know, we now have nearly 1 million Australians with Indian heritage in Australia. They are the fastest growing migrant group. They make an enormous contribution to Australia, and that creates what many people call a human bridge between Australia and India, a link that creates a very special relationship between the two countries.
Yeah.
What's the role of the Parliamentary Friends of India? It's to make sure that at a political level, we have very strong relations with India. Our role is to build support within the Australian Parliament, to gather as many people within that Parliament who are passionate about the Australia-India relationship, who see the potential in the Australia-India relationship, and ensure that that relationship is in our minds as we are creating laws for Australia, and we're building the relationship between our two countries every day.
Yeah. And Andrew, if I may ask, there was some speculation, if the new Labour government is going to be as warm towards India as the previous Liberal government. But now with the signing of Ekta, which is coming into effect on 29 December, it does seem that there is bipartisan support for this relationship. So could one say that this is going to be like a significant relationship for Australia going forward, even for the Labour government?
Absolutely. You know, I think the Labor government is extremely committed to the Australia-India relationship. One of the first leaders that Prime Minister Albanese met was Prime Minister Modi. Just a couple of days after the Australian election and after he became Prime Minister, he met Prime Minister Modi at the Quad Summit. Australia has finalised the free trade agreement with India. And this has really been an initiative that Labor has supported all the way through. In fact, it was in 2009 that the Labor Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, travelled to Delhi, met with the Indian Prime Minister at the time, Manmohan Singh, and began the discussions which led to the comprehensive partnership and which led to the free trade agreement. I remember that trip very well because I was on it back then as a young advisor to Prime Minister Rudd. But this is a relationship that the Labor Party has always supported and always been keen to push forward.
Yeah, and when it comes to security issues, of course, the Quad is a very important multilateral platform. But even if we talk about the bilateral relationship between Australia and India in terms of security issues, how critical is that, especially for the Indo-Pacific and also for the global world order in the 21st century?
Well, it's extremely important for one simple reason, and that is that India is emerging as a global superpower. India is the most populous nation in the world. Its economy is growing very strongly, and that comes with it geopolitical power and responsibility. And Australia is extremely keen to make sure that we maintain peace and security in the Indo-Pacific region. And our responsibility as a middle power, we call ourselves, is to build relationships, economic relationships, but also security relationships with other powers across that region. And that's why Australia's security relationship with India is so important to Australia, because we recognize the role that India is playing and will play in the future security of the region.
Yeah, and talking about the diaspora, you mentioned the word human bridge. You represent Parramatta, which has a significant population of people of Indian origin. So, how important is their role, and what has been your understanding so far, and your interaction with the Indian diaspora here?
Yes, well, we are extremely lucky in Parramatta to have a large population of people of Indian heritage. Of course, we have Harris Park, Little India in Parramatta, which is really a jewel in the Parramatta city. It is a hub of Indian and South Asian culture. Lots of restaurants and sari shops and jewelry shops. It is an incredibly vibrant and important part of the Parramatta community. And the Indian diaspora in Parramatta not just create a link with India that we can use to benefit our bilateral relationship, they also have an enormously positive presence on the Parramatta community. So we are very lucky to have a large Indian diaspora in Parramatta.
Yeah, and also want to ask you, Andrew, that of course India and Australia are both secular democracies. They have shared values, shared interests, and of course the Indian diaspora here. It's very everyone recognizes their contribution here. But if I were to ask you, what might be a few challenges in further strengthening this relationship? Because if you look at the economic relationship, it's still hovering around 25 to $30 billion, which a lot of people think is very far away from its potential. So while there are a lot of strengths here, what are the few challenges along the road, and what can be done to overcome them?
Yeah, look, you're absolutely right that although there's always been a lot of goodwill in the Australia-India relationship, that goodwill has not always translated into delivering on the economic potential of the relationship. In terms of our two-way trade, you're right, it is hovering around the sort of $30 billion mark. And that is a fraction of the trade with other large countries. For example, our trade with China is between 7 and 10 times bigger than our trade with India. Our investment with India is also relatively low. So despite all the goodwill in the Australia-India relationship, we need to make sure that we build the economic relationship. And, one of the things that has been holding us back is the perceived lack of complementarity between our economies. Our relationship with China was very much built on the strong complementarity of our two economies. That is, Australia exports a lot of bulk commodities that China requires, and we have imported a lot of manufactured goods that China produces. And that has built a very strong economic relationship between Australia and China. We don't have a similar strong economic relationship with India at the same level, and we need to build that. And part of building that is making sure that as Australia's economy changes, as it becomes less reliant on mining and other bulk commodities and more digital and service-based, that we use that opportunity to build a stronger relationship with India. It also means that as we continue to grow the Indian diaspora in Australia, we use that human bridge to build strong investment and trade relationships. So there is a lot of work to do in the Australia-India relationship. And as we do that work, we will build the economic relationship more deeply.
Yeah, and I guess because economic relationship is very important, because it's important for Australia to diversify its economic interests as well, and it's important for India as well to create strong bilateral relationship with Australia, I think, for the Indo-Pacific. And lastly, moving on, I have to ask you, have you visited India? And even if you've not visited India, what is your favorite Indian dish? Have to ask you that.
Absolutely. Well, I have visited India a few times. I went there with Prime Minister Rudd, as I said, in 2009, and we travelled to Delhi. I'd also been to Delhi before as a younger person. I've been to Mumbai, and probably one of my favourite experiences in India was attending a wedding in Chennai. And that was really a fantastic event over 3 days, and lots of fun and colour, lots of eating, which was fantastic. And I love Indian food. We have so much fantastic Indian food in Parramatta. Lots of wonderful Indian restaurants in Harris Park. The ones that we go to a lot, I think, because I have kids, and my kids love dosa, so that's probably what I would list as our family's favorite.
Oh, all right. And just any last words for our viewers in terms of how critical you think the India-Australia relationship is going to be?
Well, look, I would tell your viewers to strap themselves in, because the Australia-India relationship is like a rocket at the moment. We have so much goodwill. We have so much positivity. We have a lot of ministerial visits going in both directions. We've just signed the free trade agreement. The Quad is working better than ever. The Australia-India relationship is going to take off, and it'll be very exciting to see the developments between our two countries over the next couple of years.
Andrew, thank you so much for taking out time and speaking with us at the Australia Today. Thank you.
It's a real pleasure, Pallavi. Thank you.